Welcome back to Nightly Nonsense, where we make nonsense and then try to make some sense out of it. Listen, tonight I want to talk to you about something that was very important to me as a kid. Apple Wars. Dramatic pause for effect. How in the world are you going to relate Apple Wars to Christianity? Let me tell you how I'm going to do that. You know, sometimes as kids we are not very smart, right? Let me tell you one of those moments, right? When I was a kid, we loved to climb trees. So we climbed trees, we climbed apple trees because they're smaller in nature and they're all around, right? And so we're climbing apple trees, and then we would pick on my older cousins, right? So we're up in the apple trees and they're down below on the apple trees, right? Or down below on the ground. And so they're looking at us, and they come up with a brilliant idea of starting to throw apples at us. Now, again, what happens usually is the fact that the Apple Wars come with talking, right? So again, they're nicely just kind of lobbing apples up at us. It's not a big deal. Until somebody says something stupid. Like, you couldn't hit the broadside of a barn and all of that kind of stuff, which makes people a little infuriated, and it makes them immediately want to do that which you're saying they can't do. They want to prove to you that they can. So one of the things that some of my cousins came up with, which I'm sure is not new in nature, is that they would take goldenrod that was fully developed, and they would use it as a stick. They would take an apple, put it on the end of it, and now they're throwing apples with sticks. Do you know how much harder that goes? Do you know how much further that goes? Do you know what you can do with that when you have a 4-foot stick with an apple on the end of it, right? It goes well. Now all of a sudden you're up in apple trees and you're feeling a little dorky. Why? Why are you feeling that way? Because you're up in an apple tree. You're up in an apple tree, apples are being thrown at you, and there's really only one place to go in that moment. That is, as you try to defend yourself, you're going to let go of the branches you're holding onto, and where are you going? To the ground. Now all of a sudden, Apple War becomes about getting you to the ground. Unceremoniously dumped to the ground is the way that works, right? You understand, like that's the way Christianity works. At first, the enemy, you know what? He just comes at us a little bit, lobbing things at us. Here's a little lie here. Here's a little gossip here. Here's that. But you know what? As we get prideful, as we start to talk back to the enemy, that infuriates the enemy. And guess what he does? He starts being more intentional, right? Starts being more intentional. And the idea isn't just to hurt you up in the apple tree. It's to get you out of the apple tree. It's to dump you, right? It's what he wants to have happen. Now, again, the whole process is the enemy wants to hurt you, right? The enemy is trying to get you sidetracked from what you're supposed to be doing. You know what we were supposed to be doing in the apple trees? Picking the apples for my grandmother. Do you know what happens when you don't have very many apples in your bucket, but you're all bruised and broken and crying and all those things? Yep, your grandmother's not very happy, right? Do you know what happens when we do this kind of stuff, right? God wants us to be successful. God wants us to do his will and his work. He doesn't want you to get sidetracked with an apple war. Right? Does he know you're going to have them sometimes? Yes. Does he know that you're going to go through things? Yes. But he doesn't want you spending your Christian life fighting a war that is unnecessary in nature. Right? Some of us are fighting battles just unnecessary in nature. Right? We picked a fight with a bully, and then we're totally unprepared. Totally unprepared to actually fight that battle. So tonight, Nightly Nonsense, what I want you to think about is what Apple War are you involved in right now? Is it a legit battle that the God of this universe has asked you to fight for him, and he's totally armed you for it? You're all ready for it. You're good, right? Or are you up in an apple tree fighting a war with a bully that he has no desire for you to be fighting? And the only way that this ends is you being unceremoniously dumped to the ground. Right? Broken bones, all the things that go with it. Like what battles are you fighting? Did you make the battle? Did God tell you to go through the battle? Right? These are totally different. There's a story in the Old Testament of a king that keeps being egged on by another king, and he's like, why is this guy picking a fight with me? Why does this guy just want to be, we're going to come down there, we're going to kick their butts. Why is he doing this? Sometimes we're just egging on an enemy who's going to come and kick our butt because we're not ready for it. Think about that. What Apple Wars are you fighting? We'll see you next time. Nightly Nonsense.